Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And today we have four great decks for you as we finish the Sam Wilson season. We're going to kick it off with a negative list. For anyone who happens to be new here, you probably saw Thanos on the thumbnail and you're like, what the heck? This is a negative list. We do at least 3 new decks every day. The second deck is always the feature or thumbnail deck. We're going to kick this Bullseye QWERTY negative list off, though, because I've been sent this all season. QWERTY has been absolutely dominating with this all season, getting multiple Infinity tickets, multiple Infinity borders, climbed to the top 100 with it. I have been putting off featuring this list, not because I don't think the list is good, but because for a lot of this season, we were in a very Mobius heavy meta. There was a lot of Mobius, and I didn't feel comfortable suggesting this as Mobius was prominent. Well, Mobius is no longer prominent. What's prominent now, in fact, is Hela, and this deck absolutely eats Hela while being very, very solid into all the Hela counters. I think that this is an absolutely stellar list right now and one that I can urge everyone to give a try, especially if you're trying for like a last day, last minute infinite. You can find the creator of this list at twitter.com/bullseye_QWERTY. It's also the same name on Blue Sky if you are interested in a better social media experience. This deck needs Gore. Ravonna can be Psylocke, but like that is significantly worse. And you should have Null because they just gave Null to everyone a couple weeks ago, and Null will series drop in yet another week. This is a very, very, very cheap deck for something as powerful as it is. All right, so this is in the top 100. It's ranked in the 90s right now from over 1K. It's peaked this season in the 70s. This has also won multiple Infinity borders. The list is absolutely incredible. Turn 1, you pass. Turn 2, Ravonna. Ravonna is very often a snap condition. Now, if you have negative, this is a nice little quick trick that I often use when I play negative. If I have negative already and I have Ravonna, I'm going to snap before Ravonna because I want to keep them in for the 2. If I have Ravonna and not negative, I'll fairly often play Ravonna, then snap, and try and chase the opponent away. I'll just take my free Q perfectly happily while they assume I have negative and are running. Please, please, please always snap before you negative. If they have Mobius, you run. If they don't have Mobius, you sing all the way to the bank. You've won the game 90% of the time. And that's generally better than Magic. Magic is very strong right now. There is a very, very little amount of location control in the game. This is about as strong as Magic has been in quite a while. Clog decks can be problematic for this. Clog decks, however, also tend to run Magic. You're just going to have to try and go a little faster in getting your stuff out in that matchup. Turn 4 still negative, generally speaking, over Iron Man or Magic. Turn 5 is your last Magic chance, and if you're going to get Magic out and they're not clogging you and you've already played negative, that's a really, really great place to be. You can also, if you've managed to keep Magic going on turn 5 and you've gotten anything decent going before that, that's also often a snap because you've got a lot of extra stuff you can do here. Jane is a card you want to play. Obviously, if you have negative, that's going to get you all your stuff insanely strong. Please make sure you've snapped when you negative so you don't snap on Jane. You should have already snapped. And Gore or Null can be Mystique. You can play Gore or Null here, or you can play Mystique on Iron Man. If you have an extra turn, you've already played Magic, this is a really good spot to use your Shang or Killmonger. Turn 6 or 7, as the case may be, you sort of go off. Your job is to try and Zola either the Gore or the Null. You can also sometimes Zola a Mystique or an Iron Man. Those are also perfectly fine plays. If you have an extra turn, you can drop your Shang or Killmonger here, especially if you have zeros coming out. Now, the trick here is that if you don't have negative, your opponent's often going to feel very confident staying in. Your snaps have extra power. If you went like Magic into whatever, into Shang-Chi, now you can play Null and Zola it, and you probably win the game. If you got a late negative and your opponent goes, they probably don't have anything, your Zola and Gores are still game-winning potential. There's a lot of stuff like that that this deck does, and thus it is one of the better decks literally in Marvel Snap right now. I know that's a big statement. I know that's a big claim, but I didn't expect Hela to have absolutely taken over the meta to this extent this quickly, and this deck goes so tall that it absolutely feasts on those Hela lists, and so much of the other stuff that's built to counter Hela, like, can't really afford to run ongoing stuff to counter this, right? And thus you should be able to win with this list. It's very strong and very consistent right now. Before we get to our next list, we're going to talk about Thanos list, 2 of them, in fact, momentarily. I'm going to ask you to hit that sub button if you're willing. We cover Marvel Snap more thoroughly than absolutely anyone. We have at least 3 brand new decks every single day, 7 days a week. We have yet to miss a day in over 2 years. Today, in fact, nope, tomorrow, new season day will in fact make 2 years of zero missed days on this channel. Again, more new decks, more consistent content than anyone. We cover everything. If you want to know everything about the spotlights that are coming this month and what you should use your tokens or caches on, check yesterday's video. Hit that sub button at the bottom right corner of that little YouTube thing. We're also giving away on this video in the comments to this video an Agamotto. We'll also be giving away one on Friday's video if you want to go check that out. That's the top 10 decks in Marvel Snap right now. So if you are interested in Agamotto, if you do is sub, like, and then later this video, I'll tell you what comment to make. If you want to win Agamotto, do that. If you want a review of Agamotto, check yesterday's video. That is the season pass card that comes out again tomorrow. All right, Derek hit rank 3 with Thanos. I spoke to Derek this past Friday, and as he had just finished his exams and like spiked all the way from rank 7 to rank 3 in almost no time. I featured his Pixie list in Friday's video, and I was like, I'm going to feature his Thanos list in the next video I make that has a bunch of decks in it. Since then, Derek has largely stopped playing this. He's actually rank 2 now, not rank 3. With a slightly different list. We'll talk about that one relatively soon. But this Thanos list is absolutely incredible into the meta. It's just like a ramp Thanos, right? It says I can do more big stuff than most decks. I can counter most of what opponents want to do to stop me. And thus this list is incredibly cool. After Derek started dominating with his Thanos list, Crazy went back to Thanos. Crazy last March and April was number 1 on the Infinite leaderboard with varieties of Thanos builds. Well, he's back on Thanos. We'll take a look at the win rate on this Thanos because this is insane. Crazy climbed all the way from like the high teens to rank 5 with this Thanos list in just one big session. So again, hugely, hugely impressive stuff. This Thanos list has a way to counter almost anything. You can try an Alioth off the Hela, obviously. That's one of the main things you can do. If you're running into the ongoing that people are running to counter Hela, you've got Super Skrull. If you're running into a bunch of card generation or Arishem stuff, you've got Gorgon. This list is just doing a ton of powerful stuff in order to counter whatever your opponent's doing. So we've got 2 different Thanos lists, both absolute tier 1. We're going to focus on the Crazy one, though, because he's still playing that at a really ridiculously high win rate, while Derek has moved off his. So again, Derek was the number 1 player. These are both players who were number 1 multiple seasons. Derek was number 1 this past August and September. This deck needs Thanos, Mockingbird, Wiccan, and Iron Patriot. Other options for extra 3-drops are Rogue, Negasonic, and Gladiator. Feel free to pick, mix and match, Copycat, etc., etc. Hydra Bob, if you don't have Hydra Bob, you're left running Ant-Man, although you could go with a 2-drop. And then everything else you can mix and match between the 2 different versions of the list. That's why we have 2 versions. I do think with Hela in the meta, the Derek list should add Alioth, and I think you're going to want Alioth right now if you're running this deck. So Crazy's stats are 72% win rate, 48 and 18 all the way up to rank 5. And again, Derek played this all the way up to rank 3. Turn 1, you want to draw. There was a time when the Mind Stone was an immediate snap for Thanos. I don't think that's actually the case anymore. I think you need to sort of wait to see what your opponent's doing, but you can snap relatively soon after a Mind Stone if everything else is going reasonably well. If your deck sort of starts to fall apart, you don't have to have snapped, but opponents don't run from Mind Stone like they used to anyway, so you should be still very powerful. Turn 2 is Iron Patriot or Sam Wilson. Basically, you want Iron Patriot. If you're relatively sure with the cards you have, you can win that. Sam is really good here, just obviously to start moving that shield and getting power. You can also just play draw more over either pending your hand. If you don't have anything good in your hand, you may want to just actually draw into as many more cards as possible. Turn 3, you want Rocket and Groot if you have priority, and if not, you want to play a 2+1 as a general rule. Turn 4, please snap before Wiccan. Wiccan does not mean you win, but anytime you get Wiccan off, you are now favored enough that you should snap into almost anything. That's better than a Mockingbird or a 3 and a draw. Turn 5, Thanos, and Thanos is a snap if you are looking like you're going to get all the stones out. All the stones means that Thanos is generally speaking, because of Time Stone 520, that can't be destroyed, can't have its power lowered, and that's usually snap condition. You can also play Mockingbird or just a combination of cheaper stuff. Turn 6, at this point in the meta, we're looking for Alioth, and if you're pretty sure about your Alioth, you should snap. You can also play Magneto. You do, or I do anyway, often snap on the 50-50 of Hela if I feel like I have a decent read on where they're going to do it. If it's a 50-50. If it's clearly If it's a 33%, if they can play it in any of three spots, that's not a snap. But if you know where they're going to play it, it's very often a snap. All right. Crazy Thanos, again, is this incredible list right now. 72% win rate at the very top of Infinite is unheard of strong. And then Derek's slightly cheaper version that is also incredibly strong. Thanos is always going to be expensive right now. I guess Derek isn't cheaper. That Crazy's is cheaper. Whatever. Um, we're at a point in the metagame, we're at a point in Marvel Snap where Thanos is always going to be a little bit more expensive of a deck because it's going to want some high series stuff. However, if you don't have Wiccan, a reminder that Wiccan is in Spotlights tomorrow and will open up access to this deck if you already have Thanos, Mockingbird, and Iron Patriot. Time for our last chance review of Diamondback. Diamondback is a 3/3. Ongoing enemy cards here, afflicted with negative power, have an additional -2 power, and she's absolutely excellent. This is not the meta for her. The Hella meta is not her best spot, but she is very strong. She almost always ends up playing, if you play her well and your opponent doesn't have Luke, as a 3/11. I think that makes her, generally speaking, worth getting. I do, however, think that this next month coming up is completely insane. So unless you have a reasonably high series collection with a lot of negative cards like US Agent, like Man-Thing, like Luffy, I can see skipping her. However, if you do have those cards, please go get her. She does go in this deck. It's hard for me to imagine going forward her not being in this deck from now on. All right, so Toxic Soul King built a shell and then Not My Dance updated that shell. You can find on Not My Dance's YouTube, hopefully around now, sometime around now, this deck being played. You can also find it, me playing it on stream if you want to check the VOD of last night's stream. So this is our Toxic Soul King, Not My Dance. um Sort of a nihilist version of the Ajax list. The power here being if you're running into opposing Hella, sometimes you're just going to lose, right? But if you can get a clog and a nice cheap win, you can often go big enough because your Ajax is stupidly big to win another lane. So that's what this list is really trying to do, and it has a lot of power. In addition, a US agent Diamondback lane, they often end up with 2 or 3 10s in one lane, giving -5 to each of those is an awful lot, especially if you, again, have taken up one of their spots with like a hood or something along those lines. So you can find Toxic Soul King at twitch.tv/Toxic Soul King TTV. He remains one of my favorite people in the world. And then we have Not My Dance, a wonderful rising star of Marvel Snap at twitch.tv/Not My Dance. This deck needs Ajax, US Agent, Diamondback, and Annihilus. And a reminder about Annihilus that he is in fact a series drop. He will be series 4 tomorrow. This is probably the only deck I think is really good in right now, though. And then Man-Thing and Anti-Venom. That's expensive. Again, today's a little expensive. Luckily, the negative at the front was so cheap, right? Red Guardian can be Rogue, Rocket Groot, or Frigga. Laufey can be Rocket Groot, Frigga, Cassandra Nova, or Sentry. You're running Annihilus, you can run Sentry. If you're running Sentry, though, now you're going to want to find room for Viper. And hey, look, Red Guardian Laufey can be Sentry and Viper. Crazy, right? Okay. So turn 1 you want Hood, turn 2 US Agent. You don't have a lot of early game, so your opponent's going to feel very strong. Turn 3 Debris over Diamondback over Luke. If you can get a Hazmat and Demon after Debris and you have a Nihilus, you should snap because you're sending them a bunch of negative stuff. Unless obviously they're playing Mill, you're sending them a bunch of negative stuff, and you're just gonna be way ahead at that point. Anti-Venom is incredible here. Anti-Venom, your favorite hits are Ajax and Annihilus because they let you do completely broken things. But there's a million really good things to hit with Anti-Venom here. A good Anti-Venom hit can be a snap, but it's not as strong as the Demon if Debris or Annie. It's just Anti-Venom gives you such late power. Remember, you're not running Hazmat here, so having that extra ability to get these cards out is very important. You're not running Hazmat, you're not running Malekith. You can also just play whatever other 3 you want. Like if you need to get out a Luke or a Diamondback at this point, you haven't seen anything else, feel free to do so. Once in a while, you're going to have to play Laufey here. You'd really prefer not to, though. Turn 5 is Ajax or Annihilus. You're generally speaking choosing between the two unless you get very lucky with your Anti-Venom. You pick between the two, Annie if you can clog, Ajax if it's a ton of power. There are times you go Annie into Ajax. Obviously, you've won those games. Your opponent probably ran in the games you're going to do that. But if not, you're basically choosing between the two. The other play is you can play Laufey or Man-Thing on that last turn, or along with Hazmat and US Agent. You can also play Luke or Red Guardian and Diamondback. Remember, dropping an 11 power Diamondback and bringing up all the rest of your power with Luke, or taking out like an Iron Man with Red Guardian will often win you a game of Marvel Snap. This list is not easy to play, but it is incredibly strong, incredibly consistent. You should give it a try if you have the high series collection needed for this list. Hey, I'll be streaming tonight at twitch.tv/pulseglazer. Please make sure you check it out right here on Twitch and YouTube. Reminder, Twitch drops are happening. If you want to get the free scrolls and free charms for the Sanctum Showdown mode, then you should be checking us out over on that side of our content. Our question to win a season pass, someone who answers in this video will win a Agamotto season pass. How did you enjoy the Sam Wilson season? What is your overall review of the season? Let me know what you think. My overall thoughts on the season are that it was mostly good. The cards that they released were almost exclusively terrible. That's why Torres was buffed. But that left a really relatively healthy meta. I didn't like the season prior. I really, really didn't enjoy Iron Patriot being everywhere. I think Iron Patriot is sort of a poorly designed card because it's so hard to play around. It's a big, big skill remover in a way that I don't really enjoy. But I do think Sam Wilson was a wonderfully designed card. I don't hate Scar metas that much. I feel like the decks I like are reasonably good at competing into Scar metas, and thus I mostly enjoyed the season. But there's not a right or wrong answer as far as what meta you enjoy. So if you let me know what you think as far as what you liked. I think the last week has been sort of a disaster since the OTA, as Hela has become like every third game. All right, we're gonna finish with a really cool list that I just wanted to show off. We've got an Infinite Agatha. I found an Infinite Agatha over on the Twitter side of things, and I felt like I had to show it because, like, y'all, it's Agatha and it's infinite. All right, so you can find the creator of this at twitter.com/purgatory Dante. Props for the cool list. Black Knight is needed for this. Lady Deathstrike is also, but she is also series dropping to 3. Legion can be Arrow, Iron Man, or Claw, and Makari can be Proxima Copycat or Wasp. I do think you want Claw on this. This list can be bad into Hela, but you have the power of Moon Knight in order to sort of make that matchup more palatable for you, because Moon Knight is once in a while just going to chuck that Hela and you're going to get that free win. Outside of that, this list is just cool, y'all. It's Infinite Agatha. I don't have to explain why more, right? Turn 1 or 2, you have Black Knight. Turn 3, you want Sif over Moon Knight. Sif or Moon Knight over Wave. If you get Sif or Moon Knight over Wave and you have Black Knight out, you're going to play that Shard. If not, you're going to play that Ghost Rider. If you have Sif or Moon Knight, you're going to play Ghost Rider again or that Shard. And if Wave, you're going to drop Agatha here. Um, Turn 5, you're going to play not BK, you're going to play Black Bolt BB if no Moon Knight, or you're going to play Legion or Lady Deathstrike, as the case may be, pending locations. And then turn 6 is a 5 in stature, or Ghost Rider and Shard/stature. And you put up a ton of power, and this is really fun and really consistent, and it's just disruptive enough. You can also feel free to drop a stature and Juggernaut if you're so inclined. Very, very cool list. This is built off that old Husky Puppies list where this was meta for like a week, and that was such a joyful, fun week of everyone just going kind of crazy with Agatha. I'm very happy to see that this list still worked this season. That, to me, is the sign of a relatively healthy meta. If you'd like to see some gameplay from these decks and more, please check out the stream team. Today is Monday, so the great Gregor2424, who's absolutely killing it on stream, will be streaming these lists at 12 p.m. Eastern. Also, if you'd like an extra chance to win a season pass, please do go onto Perry Manilow in addition to my stream. Tonight, Perry Manilow will be hosting Bingo, and I'll be sponsoring a season pass on his stream as well. So if you want to win that, go check it out. Question of the day. Our first is from Kevin Bacon. Is it BM for the winner to fist bump first? All right. I want to be clear. You have the right to feel however you want to feel. If you are annoyed that someone fist bumped you, then you have the right to be annoyed that someone fist bumped you. However, 99% of the time, a fist bump is meant just as a good game. There are very few ways to communicate with your opponent Marvel Snap, and fist bumping is one way to do so. That's considered relatively polite. You don't have to accept that explanation. There's no requirement that you do so. But if you're going to get upset about it, then I would strongly urge you to, generally speaking, try and mute opponents as much as possible, because it's not worth the raising your blood pressure for something that someone probably, likely, not guaranteed, but probably likely meant as a kindness. It's like being mad at the barista who makes small talk, right? The person is trying to be kind and not trying to cause any difficulty, again, not every time, but as a general rule. And if you are being frustrated at that level by that, then Like, you don't have to like it again, right? But if that is frustrating you and bothering you enough to focus on at that level, then you're probably better off just muting everyone and avoiding that sort of interaction in the first place. Or, I don't know, trying to reassess why you feel that way. Caretaxley asks a wonderful question that's quite long, so give me a minute. When do you know that it's time to quit? While yes, part of me does mean in the professional sense, I also mean like when do you know it's time to walk away from a friendship or relationship? When is it time to give up on something you've been working on? Really, just all the different facets of quitting in all its different meanings. Life has been lifing a lot, and I've always felt a sense and need to be the person that always holds out hope and never stops trying. But at what point does that go from noble and an air of romanticism to and hope to delusion, reductive and self-destructive? Um, this is not an easy question, and like I think a big part of the problem with everyone answering this, including me, and I'm going to tell you what my personal answer is that we try and universalize quitting or sticking it out, and there is no such thing. Quitting and sticking things out is this amazingly context dependent decision that we make. Like, let's use a job to start with as our example. Sometimes it's bad for us and we should quit, right? Like it's mentally unhealthy and we should quit, but sometimes we do things like work with children where we think the value is worth it, or we really are preventing something worse from happening at a company that would negatively affect a bunch of other people, and we really want to keep it out. And at that point, it becomes a really difficult balancing act. And I don't know that there's a singular answer. You should quit when you are, in general, in that situation, when you are sacrificing your life from the for the benefit of another. As far as a friendship or relationship goes, I'm of a mind that outside of your spouse, you should be relatively comfortable quitting, or at least temporarily quitting. I am a person who does, I mean, this isn't going to be a surprise to longtime viewers, but who does a lot of emotional labor for people because I don't ever, or not, I don't ever, I generally speaking don't really mind. It's why I'm happy to build decks for people. It's why I'm happy to listen to everyone's problems. It's just, it it feels like a thing. Like one of the ways I help myself is by helping others. One of the ways I um, care about the world is by doing that. But I know some people don't. Some people it really hurts. It really doesn't work for. Different relationships have different strengths and weaknesses. And if that's not the place you can be in that relationship, you shouldn't have to be. You should be able to quit that relationship. I'm going to give an off center example here. There's these two high school students who were very good friends. These two girls were very good friends. Uh, After graduation, one girl decided that she wouldn't talk to another because the other um, had talked bad about her to a third friend, or had potentially like shared a secret with a third friend. But that other person, it was like known the friendship was built on that like shit talking, that like that person isn't the person that like you want to tell your secrets. In that case, a, you're perfectly valid to quit the friendship, but also know the parameters of your friendship, know the parameters of who you're dealing with, right? If you know that your friend might not be the trustworthy person or the person to handle that emotional labor in a way that you would find acceptable, then that shouldn't be the person you rely on for that. I think that's a big mistake a lot of people make with in their romantic relationships. They expect their romantic partner to be an everything for them. There's different parts of a life that a romantic partner can fill. And it'd be nice if they could do everything, but that's not a reasonable or realistic expectation. They should still have their own identity, life, and persona too. So if there's something you're putting on your partner, your friend, perhaps consider a different friend to put portions of that on, right? Not romantic intent, not sexual, anything, right? Unless that's communicated, obviously. But perhaps consider instead of quitting a person because they can't provide X, Y, or Z, let them talk to another person also. Or if someone is putting that on you and you feel uncomfortable with it or like it's too much, you can quit that friendship, relationship, whatever job. Or you can say, well, I'm going to delegate. I'm going to say, this part of this is too much for me and I need this to go somewhere else. That sort of balancing act is really, really difficult. Um, and again, this isn't a question of right and wrong answers. The second it becomes self-destructive, though, it's probably time to go most of the time. It is my genuine belief that almost every adult in the world, probably most kids, should have a therapist. You should get mental health checkups like just like you get physical health checkups. It's silly to me that we don't. This should be a thing that most adults, when they start to feel this way, can talk out with a therapist because they need someone objective, third party, whose literal job it is to not be emotionally invested, that can speak hard, clear truths. The lack of ability to do that or the forcing of that often leads to self destructive behaviors. And I think that one of the main drivers of fixing this kind of problem is therapy. Like, and then listening to the damn advice. Now, there is one final thing to say, and that is I don't always listen to any of this. I find myself in toxic situations every so often, and sometimes I stick them out because I feel like I'm unbreakable, and I'm not. And sometimes I stick out toxic work situations because fuck you, you'll never kill me. And of course they can, and of course everything can actually hurt and break me. I am not saying that I am perfect or that I expect um, you, dear viewer, to be. I'm saying that we can all try to balance ourselves a little better, to balance our relationship so that we don't end up in these deluded, reductive, or self-destructive situations. And when we do, we should have someone objective and third party to help us identify that and do a better job at walking away. Sorry about that ridiculously long answer. Let's get to our Patreon. It is March, and we have a Patreon. We are running major tournaments through our Patreon. We have all sorts of early access and good stuff happening over there. If you're interested, check out patreon.com/snapjudgments. Our Patreon for March is Absolute Shannon. Props to Shannon. Our Patreon of the month happens when we do our stream aberration. This one will be on 3/16, Stone Cold Steve Austin Day, which will be our Twitch front page. So if you're interested in checking it out, please do hop on that day for a ton of prizes and great stuff. I'd like to say thank you to, and I'm going to go quickly because it is now late because I took 20 minutes to answer that last question. Epic Lisa, Manager Burnout, Irregardless, LAB, Inc., Iron Frostman, Hotan Navidete, Thinking Poker, Prime Brian, Ryan Burke, Ryan Wood, Carrot Tixley, Hey, Corey 8, Who's Rude, Kazushi, Archangel 3K, Black Dahlia, Pyrophos, The Goat Seeker, Hollow, Nightmare, Only Fox, Synth, Fat Nick, Dirty Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, Cables, Ginger Prime, Philip Rackowicz, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger of the Biz, Black Jeebus 23, Extra Cian, Skippy D, Jessica Gallus, Flush Death, King Bros, Brup, 38, Kazoo, Werewolf, Kev Yoda, Lunacris, Glam, Colonel Forbin, Rob Silverman, M. Holland, David G. Wingfield, Stephen, Brian Crawford, Tristan Martin, Jason B., Mr. Gristeri, Matt V., Ren Wrench, Corbin, Junk Q, Jim McHugh, Yistout, 8th Sage, One Big Man, Milkman for Reals, Cactus Jack, BG, Quid Pro Joe, Snap Decisions Joe, Models Mod Supreme, The Green Goblin, Unibot, Flan 56, The Fuzzy Lot, Spectrumx, Hoot, Ocularis, Matt H., DJ Mikey Ajax, No Frickin' Flex, Nick the Greek Geek, Zodrex, the King of Canada, Demet Falcon, Father Newman, Jonesy, the Great Two Ties, our friend Lauren Devs, the Pirate King Tucker, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for Ocularis at Infinite on the last day. Let's go, Ocu! Congrats, my friend. That's it for today's video. I gotta go to sleep. It's stupidly late for me. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with a bunch of new season stuff. Don't forget to comment to win that season pass, like, sub, do the things. Peace.